to you, Wanda Kawin Step Epworth, Stope Over. Good morning to you, Mairumbi, Brian Madziwanzira, One Commander in Cranbourne. Good morning to you. Mike Kwashin Budiro is joining us as well. Good morning. My Matipa Mamugase saying it's so good to have you on the crunch. Thank you so much. My guy Mabuku Patience is joining us as well. Thank you so much. Sharon in Waterfalls, as well as Mdarawangu Chakfora in Bordeaux. Thank you so much for coming through. Who is this? 479 saying it's a memory shaking indeed. The first song from Zep Mama called Brlak. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for coming through. Now we get into conversation on Green Morning, but we're also live on our Facebook page. So make sure you can join us. You join us as well. If you've got some data to spare, we're live on our Facebook page, Capital 100.4 FM. Green Morning, for those with a lack of knowledge of what we're doing here, seeks to discuss all issues to do with the conservation of the natural habitat, and we spotlight innovations in Africa. We spotlight breaking news on the environment, climate change, pollution, and endangered species. Really, anything to do with the environment is what we specialize with on this particular show. Now, I want to understand, last week there was a conversation on this platform as well that was aligned to Wetlands, Zimbabwe on the global stage. So we in a way want to just perhaps link all that up and continue with the idea of wetlands and where it's taking us. And hopefully by the end of this series, you would have had something that you would have learned from this particular conversation. My guest today, as I said earlier, is Dr. Henry Ndaimani, a renowned special ecologist with over 18 years of experience in conservation. Having worked at Zimpax for a decade, Dr. Ndaimani has contributed significantly to protecting iconic species like the African elephant. With expertise in GIS software, sensing and data analytics, he sheds light on innovative conservation strategies. So it makes sense that we have him right here in studio. It always makes sense when you've got an expert. It makes it easier for us actually. What exactly do you want to talk about? I did say that we have a very, very special conference happening in Zimbabwe. The 15th meeting of the conference of the contracting parties to the Convention on Wetlands and Associated Meetings between the 23rd and the 31st of July 2025. The Victoria Falls will be live because of the Ramsar Convention, which is coming to Zimbabwe. I won't try and make myself the expert. I'll make Doc the expert on this, and he'll further break down to us what exactly we are speaking about. But good morning to you, Doc, and thank you so much for joining us on the Capital Crunch.
Thanks so much, Skqatta. Pleased to be on the show.
Thank you. So let's get straight into it, Doc. The Ramsar Convention and what it speaks about. I did a light reading on it, and I found it very interesting that as Zimbabwe, we are able to host such a conference of importance. I see. Also, I got a little bit worried as well because I was like, okay, but Isusu, how involved are we in terms of such issues? But we'll talk about that. Maybe you can just introduce what this conversation is, this conference is, and also what it means to us.
Thank you so much. So Ramsar is a city in Iran. So this is the place where this idea was put together. So the convention is also called the Convention on Wetlands. We have up to 2,400 Ramsar sites across the globe. And out of the 2,400, 7 are found in Zimbabwe. We are also a signatory. We have ratified the convention. There's a total of up to 170 countries that have ratified the convention. So the convention meeting, which is going to be held in Victoria Falls, is going to actually facilitate and enable discussions amongst the countries that are signatory to this convention. Discussions will be around management and conservation of wetlands. Like I said, in Zimbabwe we have 7 sites. Let me see if I can remember all of them. There is Manapus, which is located to the north of Zimbabwe. There is our Lake Chivero and Darwendale, which is very close to Harare. We also have Cleveland. That's another place which is found in Harare. Monaville wetland is also in Harare. Chinoi Caves, that's another Ramsar site. Victoria Falls, that's another Ramsar site. And then the seventh one is the Driefontein wetlands, which are found close to Gutu, between Gutu and Vuma. So these are the places that we have identified and registered as wetlands, Ramsar sites that basically need to be protected. So discussions at the conference are going to be around how we effectively manage these ecosystems for the betterment of our communities and also as a country.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Now, the whole idea of these wetlands, because someone might be asking themselves, what's the fuss? Why do we need to be speaking about them and talking about them? But obviously, they serve a very, very important cause in terms of our environment and our existence primarily. So, let's talk about the importance of these wetlands. When we tie them up with ideas to do with climate resilience, when we talk about our biodiversity and water management itself being key in these issues, akatikoshera chima wetlands because inongova wetlands kutoita dare ratoda kuita seratoda noita kuvic falls asi for people to sit down and have such a conference, it means that there's some importance that is worth in the wetlands. So why the fuss and why are they important to us?
Thank you so much. So like I said, we have at the moment 2,400 sites across the globe that are considered Ramsar sites. Important as wetlands, important for biodiversity, like you correctly say. So if we take, for example, a Ramsar site like Manapuz, this is a place which is located on the banks of the Zambezi to the north of the country. And then we also have very important kind of oxbow lakes that are also found in Manapuz. So Mana is more like four, Manapuz. So we have 4 pools that are located in this part of the world. But then from a biodiversity point of view, this is a site which is very important. If you go there, if you travel there, probably as a tourist, in one afternoon probably you will just see the big 4. And then probably an additional day you might be able to see the big 5. So these are water points that are sustaining or maintaining ecosystems that are very healthy. And then we also have the opportunity to actually see wildlife in those ecosystems. Let me take another example from a kind of a rural kind of setup. So the Driefontein wetlands that are located between Gutu and Vuma. This is a very important wetland ecosystem where we have lots of water which can also support agriculture. So if you are talking about communities that live around these places, they can also do basic things like your gardening. So it's a system which also supports those things. So if you have this discussion probably within a lens of climate change, our temperatures are increasing, we have a high prevalence of droughts, rainfall is also going down. So in these parts of the landscape, you have enough water which can also support these basic livelihood options like your gardening. So the communities will also benefit. So if we don't exactly invest in the protection of these ecosystems, over time you start to see them drying up. And when they dry up, we have already lost a livelihood option. So there is definitely need to really go into these areas and draft strategies that are aimed to protect them so that they can also support livelihoods within a climate change kind of a discussion. And then finally, I think, I gave the example of Manapuz where you have mammal populations that are very good, but you also have other ecosystems where you don't exactly expect a lot of mammal populations. So if you talk about Monaville, it's not an ecosystem where you expect to see impala or lions, but it's an ecosystem that also supports other life forms that are important, like your invertebrates, your insects, and then you also have the frogs and other animals that are of importance. And then maybe finally, I think we need to talk about the importance of wetlands in terms of cleaning up. So if you talk about a place like Mukuvisi Woodlands, as an example in Harare, this is a wetland which is located along the Mukuvisi River. You know, there is industry upstream, and then we have a lot of toxic or chemicals and other waste which can actually harm us. So when it goes through the wetland, it acts as a sponge, and it basically cleans up. So there is infiltration, and some of the nutrients and also the chemicals are also used by plants. So downstream, so from a science perspective, if you measure pollution levels upstream, they would basically be higher than downstream. And the wetland is actually acting as a sponge to basically clean up the water. So these are some of the importance of wetlands. Thank you.
Indeed. It's almost embarrassing, Doc. I won't lie to you, that for most of us, not only do we not know some of the wetlands that we have locally, but even the importance or the use of these wetlands. Particularly, maybe sometimes we truthfully don't understand how these wetlands work. But unfortunately, of course, it comes back to bite us. But I think you then linked into what I wanted to go into next. When we speak of the wise use of these wetlands, sometimes how we are polluting these wetlands, and ideally, the biodiversity suffers. We suffer as well because we use these wetlands. Let's maybe just stretch it a bit more, in terms of balancing human needs with ecosystem protection. How important is it for us to wisely use our wetlands? Because ideally, it's not just for us. We're also looking into the future. And so, if we are the ones to destroy these wetlands, ideally, kumberuku, vachangosvikawo pamwe kusina mvura dzacho, kusina nzvimbo dzapwa kana kuti dzisingachatoshandisiki zvachose. So maybe let's talk about that a bit.
No, thanks a lot for raising that discussion point. So, when we are talking about wetlands, we are talking about water. I think water is the most important thing there, plus the biodiversity, of course. And when we talk about the water, we talk about its quantity, how much water do we have in that wetland, but we also talk about the quality. So I'll take an example of Chivero. Remember, I said Chivero and Darondo combined are one of the 7 Ramsar sites that are found in Zimbabwe. So this is an ecosystem which is located very close to a major urban setup, very close to Harare, where there's a lot of agriculture going on around and also a lot of industry. So issues around water quality definitely become very topical when we talk about these ecosystems. So some of the industrial waste which is produced within our industrial areas finds its way into these ecosystems. If you remember so well, just recently, we lost some animals in the Chivero Recreational Park. And that incident is basically linked to the quality of the water within that water body. So definitely there is need to balance development, human needs, and also the ecosystem, because sometimes industry thrives and then we are happy as people, but at the same time we have negative effects on our ecosystems. This is just one example. And then if I take another example from a kind of a rural kind of setup, if you remember so well, when we establish water bodies within the country, I'll take the example of the Tokwe-Mukosi Dam. This is a large water body which is found within a communal kind of setup. So normally, soon after completion of that project, Zimpax would also come in to say, let's gazette and protect the area which is located around the water body. So you would have a recreational park around the water body. What's the purpose of that gazettement or that enactment of law to protect the area around? You know, if the area is not protected, especially within the watershed, we have things like agriculture, people who till the land and then produce their crops. But when they are doing that, we have silt or loose soil which is actually washed into these water bodies. And over time, you start to see siltation of the water body, and it won't be able to actually hold a lot of water. So talking about quantity, things like siltation will also then have a negative impact on the volumes of water which can actually be accommodated in a water body. And this is the reason why we would have a need to protect the areas that are immediately around, so that there is no cropping, there is no tilling, and then we enhance or lengthen the lifespan of our water body. So this is a discussion from a water quality and a water quantity point of view. And overall, what I'm saying is there is need to really balance human needs and also our ecosystem so that they are maintained healthy.
Absolutely. Well, the discussion continues right here in studio. We are with Dr. Henry Ndaimani, who's a special ecologist. We're talking about the Ramsar Convention, the upcoming Ramsar Convention, which will be held from the 23rd to the 31st of July 2025 in Victoria Falls. But I think you can get a picture clearly as you're listening about why this conversation is important and why you and me, the general public, needs to be more involved. And I think we'll pick it up from there as well soon after this break. We'll be back after this. Stay with us.
We don't negotiate.
No.
We take no prisoners. We are here to rule. Cappy Talk 100.4 FM at 8. Harari's Heartbeat. Hashtag dominate. Get ready. 3, 2, 1.
What's up, everyone? It's your boy Holy 10, and you're listening to Harari's Heartbeat.
18 before 10 right here on Cappy Talk 100.4 FM, Harari's Heartbeat. This is the Capital Crunch, the first hour on a Thursday morning, and of course this is Green Morning up until we get to 12 midday. That is exactly what we are up to. But of course the conversation is on Green Morning here with Dr. Henry Ndaimani, just making us familiar with wetlands. I for one didn't know that we actually have that number of wetlands in Zimbabwe. It's very interesting that when you dig deep within some of these things, you find that Zimbabwe is actually, a signatory to many conventions, especially when it comes to environmental issues. I think Zimbabwe is one of those countries that is very vocal, if I can put it that way, in terms of these issues. But from a local perspective, are we vocal ourselves? And what part are we playing in terms of making sure that we understand how our environment works? That is the bigger question. Kuti isusu kuti papi munhu audze kuda kunzwisa kuti zvinofamba sei uye kuti chijanha chedu ndechipi munyaya dzakasiyana-siyana idzodzi. Now, on that particular note, Doc, I don't think it's possible for perhaps the leaders in such conversations to just bundle up themselves and say, okay, we'll discuss this, we'll find solutions on our own. Even the locals or the local communities might have a voice, might have a say in some of these issues, and might even come up with important strategies on how to tackle my difficult situations right now, especially pertaining to Nyazima wetlands. Let's talk about how these conversations happen when it comes to local communities, when it comes to government bodies, or the relevant channels as well. How often do these happen, and if so, how do they happen, and why is it important for these two parties to maybe have conversations around these? these issues?
Thank you so much for that question. I think it's very important. The nexus or the need for government to come together with communities in the management of these sites, the Ramsar sites and the wetlands. So communities are definitely important because these are the people who are living closest to these sites, and they use them, they benefit from that kind of use, and we also expect them to be leading in terms of conserving these ecosystems. But on the other side, we have government, which is basically there to guide and also to gazette. For a site to be called a Ramsar site, there is need for it to be protected, and it's protected according to the law, and the government is basically responsible for that kind of intervention. So they actually craft laws and policies that help to protect these ecosystems. Let me take the example of Monaville. Monaville is a Ramsar site which is found in Harare, towards the west, the areas around Mauberain, in that part of town. This is a Ramsar site which is protected, but then from a development point of view, you know, there is always demand for land, and we want to expand our residential areas. So there's been a lot of discussions around trying to keep developments outside of the site against the background where there is high demand for land. So for that discussion to actually be a fruit and to give us positive feedback and results, there is basically need for government to come together with communities, have that discussion and say we cannot develop in this part of town. But for that to be really effective, there is need for buy-in from the communities. So if you drive around Harare today, we know where these wetlands are, but there's also been pressure from land developers who also want to be utilizing these pieces of land for other developments. So there's basically need for discussion and to actually reach a consensus on how these ecosystems are used. So government is there to gazette and protect, and then the communities are there to utilize and also benefit, but at the same time coming up with the interventions that basically aim to protect these ecosystems.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking as well that for it to be easier for local communities, Skqatta, you know, you need to have a sense of ownership and responsibility. You know, it makes it easier for you if you know what these are definitely our wetlands, and if you benefit directly from them, you understand how important they are to you. So what do they need, perhaps, you know, as communities to succeed at local wetland management?
So what is basically needed is knowledge. So I will take a rural setup like your Driefontein. Vanhu vanogara ikoko, you know, communities vanobenefita nekuita magarden avo, and then they would get some vegetables out of that kind of production. They would sell them. So this is actually at the best, or it supports a kind of livelihood there. But at the same time, kana mukangwesa magarden everywhere without proper planning, you know what's going to happen. You are going to suit the wetland, and you are also going to come to a situation where there is no wetland at all. So maybe 10 years down the line, you are no longer able to actually utilize it because it is dried up. The other pressure that you can also have is when you have cattle grazing in that kind of a wetland. You know, when cattle are there, they trample, and then when they trample like that, slowly there is compaction, and over time you also tend to lose the wetland. So I think, like you correctly say, ownership is actually tied up with the responsibility. You own, yes, but you need to properly manage so that at least you can use that resource going into the future.
Absolutely. Now maybe we can I get back to the convention itself, Doc. Looking ahead at Zimbabwe's wetland vision, what are the expected outcomes of this particular convention that we're looking at?
One of the key objectives of the discussions is to actually enhance conservation of the wetlands. But because there are also a lot of countries that are going to be involved, some of these wetlands are transboundary. We have one part of the ecosystem in one country and the other one in the other country. So for effective management of these systems, I think there is need for more like regional cooperation. So if there's a wetland which is between Zimbabwe and Zambia, it won't make sense to more protect the Zimbabwean side and then the Zambian side is not protected. But if you join hands and work together to try and protect it from both sides, you get the best results. Remember, I said some of these ecosystems are important for wildlife. I was thinking of this bird called the white stork. It's a kind of a bird, a bit large, black in color, and there's a little bit of white. They only come during the wet season. When you have your rains, you see them coming. And then during the dry season, you don't see them because they've migrated elsewhere. And normally you find these kinds of birds utilizing these wetlands. So, like I said, the transboundary component of protection and conservation of the wetlands is very important, and it's going to come up as topical in the discussions at the convention in Victoria Falls. Why? Because some of these ecosystems are transboundary, and you would want them to work on both sides of the country, both sides in Zimbabwe, Zambia, countries that are adjacent. And then the other key discussion I think is around climate change, because we know how climate change has affected our ecosystems and our production and our livelihoods. We are going to be having less rain. We are going to have higher frequency of droughts, and as a result, we might also start to have a scenario where these wetlands also disappear. So we need to come up with strategies that enhance climate change adaptability, and also strategies that try to conserve our wetlands under a changing climate.
Absolutely. Finally, Doc, I'm a strong advocate for the youth, so I always try and make sure that I squeeze in something for us, or maybe try and understand how we as the youth can participate in such issues. I want to believe, particularly temas no baropa there also. Njere dzifunya so pinza. Do patinokwanisa kuya forward and maybe just weigh in terms of such conversation. So where are we situated in all this? What role can we play as the youth? Maybe even in schools, where can we fit into this, to this fight, so to speak?
No, thanks a lot. So the youths are definitely important, because the wetlands affect not only the old, they also affect the young. And so there is basically need for the youth to be involved. In Zimbabwe, one of the key issues has been around trying to quantify the amount of wetlands we have in the country. Where do we have the wetlands, and how much area is covered by the wetlands? There's been a very good effort from the Environmental Management Agency in collaboration with the Zimbabwe National Geospatial and Space Agency. So now what we basically have is a gazette showing where our wetlands are. So I think from a youth perspective, the youth can actually be involved in research aimed at understanding how these wetlands are distributed and how they actually help in our day-to-day lives. But again, the people who are affected the most when it comes to wetlands within rural areas, first is the women, because these are the people who are actually involved in the gardens, in the productions within that happen within the wetlands. Because most of the men in a Zimbabwean kind of setup are out at work, but the women are out there doing their gardening and also getting some money out of it. And then the youth are also actively involved in that kind of production, because most of them, especially the young, they are still living with their mothers, and also they rely a lot on these systems. And again, from a climate kind of a discussion, you know, climate change is real. It's going to affect us in the future. And the people who are going to be affected are the people who are young at the moment. Probably by the time you start to have significant and impactful negative effects on populations, we might be gone. And then you, the young, will be around. So you need to really play an active part to try and conserve, because these things are going to be impacting you heavily in the future.
Absolutely. Doc, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for opening our minds, you know, in just the direction that we should be thinking, you know, towards, and how we can all actively play a role. Munyadzi mawetlands idzodzi ndatodzidzao changu kuti ndokwanisa sei kupindawo mudariro panyaya idzodzi. As I'm hoping the listener as well had a takeaway or two in terms of this particular conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. In conversation there with Dr. Henry Ndaimani, special ecologist, just helping us get an understanding of Idzonaudzema wetlands. And if you stay near wetland as well, I think now you'll be a bit more careful in terms of how you interact with that piece of nature, and just how you too can be part of this particular conversation. It's pretty much a wrap on Green Morning for this morning.